Good afternoon, and indeed, as you already heard, so if you don't feel safe, so just safety is most important thing. Just you will have an opportunity to listen the recorded intervention, so in the lecture afterwards. But first of all, I would like to thank Uzhgorod National University for organizing the winter online school, despite and in spite of the circumstance and the situation, so that, and it's also one of the signs and examples of Ukrainians' persistence and also resistance, and that regardless the circumstance, you are determined, you know what you want to achieve and where you go and what is your goal. And in this context, today I would like to share you how NATO supports Ukraine, how NATO and allies, Ukraine's partners, are supporting you. And it's very important to underline that this support started not a year ago on 24th of February. It started already many years ago. And as it was already mentioned, NATO Information Documentation Center, my colleague Svetlana Rotayenko and myself, which we represent, was opened in 1997. And NATO's engagement and cooperation with Ukraine started already in early 90s. And just a year ago, we just showed that our support and our engagement and our partnership, it's even more stronger. And almost 1 year since the invasion, President Putin isn't preparing for peace, unfortunately. Russian missile attacks on Ukrainian cities and people show the brutality of Russia's illegal war every day. And he is preparing for new offensives, and we see that. And also today it shows and proves that. Therefore, NATO and allies are determined to continue to provide Ukraine with what Ukraine needs to achieve a just and sustainable peace. Putin has made several major strategic mistakes. First, it's clear that he misjudged the resistance of the Ukrainian people, their bravery, and their will to fight to defend their country. And second, he underestimated the unity, resolve, and dedication of NATO allies and partners to support Ukraine. He also underplayed the economic consequences of the sanctions regime, and he overestimated the abilities of his military to secure a rapid victory, a victory of 3 days. And we have also seen that Russian soldiers are short of weapons and morale. Even so, we should not underestimate Russia, because Moscow still retains significant military capabilities and can deploy large numbers of troops. But what makes Russia dangerous is its complete disregard for the human costs, both to Ukraine and to itself. Ukraine's friends and partners have been by Ukraine's side from the very beginning of the war. And the response of our alliance has been swift, strong, and united. Since February, NATO allies have provided unprecedented military, financial, and humanitarian support to help Ukraine uphold its right to self-defense. And this support includes also new tanks, heavy weaponry, and training. And we see how that is making a real difference on the battlefield. This support builds on years of close partnership between NATO and Ukraine, including the training of thousands of Ukrainian forces since the illegal annexation of Crimea by Russia in 2014. Last year at the Madrid summit, NATO held a summit in Madrid, and we call it the Madrid summit. And at the summit, we approved a more robust package of support for Ukraine. And this package we call the Comprehensive Assistance Package. And it includes short-term measures of support, or immediate, urgent support. And it comprises food, fuel, medical supplies, secure communications, anti-drone systems, winter clothing, and generators. So this is our immediate or short-term support to Ukraine, responding to Ukraine's urgent needs. And this support package, what we call Comprehensive Assistance Package, it also includes our commitment to support Ukraine's medium and longer-term or post-war reconstruction and reforms. Because when the war is over, and not only when the war is over, because Ukrainians are already rebuilding and reconstructing regained territories and what has been damaged. And over the longer term, we will help Ukraine with transition from Soviet-era military equipment to modern NATO equipment. We will also boost interoperability among our forces, and we will also further strengthen Ukraine's defense and security institutions. And that we were doing before the war, and we are determined to do it when the war is over. And all of this builds on years of support and training by NATO and substantial military aid from allies. We have also made clear that we will continue to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. And this, as long as it takes, this you can hear from all platforms and from everybody, starting from NATO Secretary General and all our allies. This week in Brussels, NATO held NATO Defense Ministerial. And defense ministers from all NATO countries arrived in Brussels, and it was decided to step up or to increase, to strengthen support for Ukraine. And on Tuesday, a couple of days ago, allies met with Ukrainian Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov, who was visiting also and taking part in the ministerial. And they met Minister Reznikov to discuss the situation on the ground and Ukraine's most urgent military needs. So we can provide what Ukraine needs. It goes without saying that the invasion of Ukraine has destroyed peace in Europe, and it is undermining the rules-based international order that we built together at the end of the Cold War. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine creates a completely new security reality on the European continent. And in response, the leaders of the alliance have agreed a fundamental shift in NATO's deterrence and defense. And that was decided and that was agreed last summit in Madrid, which took place in June. In fact, this is the biggest overhaul of defense and deterrence since the end of the Cold War. We have substantially increased our presence from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, and especially in Eastern and Central Europe, mainly in the Baltic countries, but also in Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Bulgaria, and Romania. So we have doubled the number of NATO battle groups. Before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, we had 4 battle groups in the Baltic countries and in Poland. And now we have doubled this number to 8. And we are also working toward being able to enhance these battle groups quickly to a brigade level. And by strengthening our own defenses, we are leaving no room for miscalculation in Moscow about our determination to defend every inch of Allied territory. And now I would like to shortly speak about NATO's strategic concept, or NATO's new strategic concept, which was also approved, accepted last year at the Madrid summit, and about its relevance to the partnership between NATO and Ukraine. And I would like to share with you today how NATO as an alliance is adapting to deal with the far-reaching consequences that Russia's invasion of Ukraine is having in Europe and in the transatlantic area. Every time the security environment have changed, NATO has changed with it. And as we know, NATO was established in 1949 in April. And since then, also NATO is evolving and adapting to the security environment it finds, or it operates. NATO has adapted to continue to protect our 1 billion people, because right now NATO consists of 30 member states, and soon we will be 32. And altogether, if we take the population of all member states, it's about 1 billion people. And we are also adapting to continue to protect, or to support, to protect our member states and to support partners like Ukraine. And the current big adoption of NATO to this new security reality, which is created by Russia, is driven by the new strategic concept that the leaders of the alliance approved, as I already said, last year in Madrid in Spain. And the strategic concept is the most important document in the NATO hierarchy. First is the North Atlantic Treaty, which is NATO's founding document, and then comes strategic concept. And strategic concept isn't adopted every year. So, for example, the previous strategic concept actually served us 11 years. So, and the concept truly has an impact, and it sets the course of our political and military adaptation, because NATO is both. It's political and military organization. And first of all, we try to solve like disputes and issues that we are facing using political means. And only when political means, when we can't face or solve a situation using political means, then steps in, NATO's second pillar, military. So it's important to remember that NATO is a political and military alliance. And the 2022 strategic concept opens a new time in NATO's history, one in which we are resetting back to collective defense. We recognize that we are not any longer in that peace dividend time. And I would like to highlight 3 points about the new strategic concept, which are relevant to the distinctive partnership between NATO and Ukraine. First of all, the concept clearly recognizes that Russia is the most significant and direct threat to allies' security. It's first. Second, the concept recognizes that a strong, independent Ukraine is vital for the stability of the Euro-Atlantic area. And third, it reaffirms the historic decision of the 2008 Bucharest summit that Ukraine will become a member of NATO and commits to continue to develop the NATO-Ukraine partnership. And point one means that the new strategic concept defines Russia as the most significant and direct threat to allies' security. The Russian Federation's war of aggression against Ukraine has gravely altered our security environment, and its brutal and unlawful invasion, repeated violations of international humanitarian law, and indiscriminate attacks against civilian and critical infrastructure are causing unspeakable suffering and destruction. And Moscow's behavior reflects a pattern of Russian aggressive actions against its neighbors and the wider transatlantic community. In light of its hostile policies and actions, we cannot consider Russia to be our partner. However, we remain willing to keep open channels of communication with Moscow, and we remain willing to do in order to manage and mitigate risks, prevent escalation, and increase transparency. Because we seek stability and predictability in the Euro-Atlantic area and between NATO and the Russian Federation. And any change in our relationship depends on Russia stopping its aggressive behavior and fully complying with international law. The second point relevant to the strategic concept means that the new strategic concept recognizes that a strong, independent Ukraine is vital for the stability of the Euro-Atlantic area, and that the security of countries aspiring to become members of the alliance is intertwined with our own. Accordingly, we are helping to uphold Ukraine's fundamental right to self-defense with unprecedented level of support. And the third point is that the strategic concept reaffirms the decision of the Bucharest summit back in 2008 and all subsequent decisions with respect to Ukraine. And leaders also reaffirmed NATO's open door policy as an expression of our fundamental values and our strategic interest in Euro-Atlantic peace and stability. And decisions on membership are taken by NATO allies, and they are taken on the basis of consensus. And no third party has a say in this process. And here I would like to underline once again that NATO and allies, we stand by Ukraine and we are supporting, and especially now Ukraine finds itself in a very crucial period when our support is of paramount importance. And also as a political alliance, that is what NATO leadership and allies constantly underline, that we are with Ukraine and that Ukraine's rights to self-defense are enshrined in a United Nations Charter, and that the fact that we are with Ukraine and that we are supporting Ukraine, it means that we do it for Euro-Atlantic peace and stability, and it's very important that Ukraine wins, because it also means that that the values we stand for also prevail, and it also means that there is no assumption, or there is no room for an idea that autocracy and that unlawful actions can take over. That's why it's very important that Ukraine withstands and that we stand with Ukraine. And I don't know if we have some time more, so I'm ready to take a couple of questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kляйне. I'm deeply appreciate the contribution of NATO countries to the security of the region of Ukraine and the whole world. My question is following: it is not uncommon to find in foreign media such ideas that countries are afraid to supply certain types of weapons and just weapons at all to Ukraine. One of the reasons is clear: the reluctance to get involved in a war with a country that is not even a member of NATO. But another reason was also voiced: fears about the corruption in the Ukrainian government. Our NATO countries are helping to overcome this problem?
Thanks a lot for the question. But I can reassure that NATO's support to Ukraine is unprecedented. And we see all the amount or all the value and of support which is being given by allies, all kinds, so including tanks and then artillery and ammunition, what is very much needed. Here I would like to also underline that this support, it's multi-layered, and it implies lethal and non-lethal, and NATO as an organization also helps Ukraine with non-lethal things, also within the comprehensive assistance package, and I already listed the things we provide Ukraine with. Another thing is what you mentioned, corruption. So I think it's that the Ukrainian government is taking firm steps, and also to show and prove that whatever is that they work openly and transparently, and that also they are as transparent as possible. And this is what we see and what we witness. So, and here I would like just to underline that our support will continue, because it's our common. It's what we stand for the same values, and Ukraine's rights to defend itself, they are enshrined in the United Nations Charter. And that's why we stand by Ukraine.
Thank you very much. Have you any question? Please. Артем Тарасенко, прошу.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your speech and words of support. Ms. Kляйне, I have a question. What will do NATO with Russia after Ukrainians' victory? Do alliance have a plan how to remake Russia Federation or finally destroy it?
Thank you. Our main focus and goal is that Ukraine wins. So, and that Ukraine wins on its own terms. So, and that it's Ukraine which sets, terms at which or based on which Ukraine determines the end of the war. That's why we are with you, and the main thing for all of us now is to win this war and to put an end to all the suffering and destruction, and already now to think how to rebuild and reconstruct. And that's why within the comprehensive assistance package, which I already mentioned, which was adopted last year, revised package, strengthened, there is also a point that we are looking forward how to help Ukraine in a longer term perspective. So not only for the current immediate needs, but also how we are working with Ukraine in mid and longer term perspective.